All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Kloud-12's Roundtable discussion for district and school leaders. Today, our topic is building dynamic leadership, and our guest speaker will be Mr. Trent North. At this time, if you'll take a moment, if you want to type into the chat space your name and your location, where you're coming from. I already see there's Thomas Moat from Troup County and LaGrange. And I'll just pause just a moment there for those that are wanting to type that in the chat space. All right, I see Kelly Martinez from Boulder, Colorado. See some folks from Georgia. Awesome. All right, we're going to continue on. All right, I see Fairport, New York. Tanya from Fairport, New York. Also see Mia from Dunwoody, Georgia. Awesome, welcome. All right, and we're going to continue right on. At this time, before we do that, I'm going to do a quick little poll here. So at this moment, if you'll just answer, what is your current role? I'm going to leave that up for just a second. All right. People are answering those. So awesome. I see there we have some superintendents, assistant superintendents, and we also have some school leadership also in the house. So that's awesome. That is awesome. A little bit about myself. My name is Emmanuel Reddish, and I will be your host today. I also serve as the Kloud-12 Customer Engagement Manager. A little bit about myself. I have 16 years in education before officially joining the Kloud-12 team. I've had the privilege of serving as a teacher, department chair, building administrator, district administrator, as well as district state Department of Education committees. I have 3 years as a Kloud-12 customer. I expanded from an initial deployment to a district-wide implementation. Also on this call, I have my awesome customer success team that is headed by Kelly Martinez, Director of Customer Success, also Caitlin Day, Customer Success Manager, myself, and Jamie Ulmer, Customer Success Operations Specialist. And on this call today, as I host it for you, you'll notice that on your screen, you should see a question and answer portion. On that side, I've closed the chat portion down, but on the question and answer, as Mr. North is presenting, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, just simply type those in the question and answer portion. And once we get to that section, I'll be sure to ask those to Mr. North so that we continue our discussion. So I'm excited. I hope everyone else is. And we're just ready to have a great session today. Trent North has served as the Douglas County School System Superintendent since 2017. As superintendent, he manages the day-to-day and strategic operations of a school system with over 26,000 students and 4,075 employees. Since his arrival in Douglas County, he has inspired student achievement, strengthened family partnerships, and increased employment engagement district-wide. Under his leadership, the district has earned recognition for innovation and education at the state, regional, and national levels. In 2023, the Georgia School Superintendents Association named him Georgia Superintendent of the Year. The following month, the American Association of School Administrators named him one of 4 national finalists for Superintendent of the Year. Throughout his tenure, North's priority has remained student-focused. This student-first commitment reflects his lifelong passion for addressing academic and social achievement by building cultures of success. In addition to his intense focus on classroom achievement, he has innovated several safety initiatives. In doing so, the district has remained at the forefront of school security technology. North believes today's students are tomorrow's Douglas County. As a reflection of that commitment, the district offers students a challenging curriculum that prepares them to become independent thinkers and productive citizens in a global society. To advance the district's mission of preparing students for success, North invests in several community organizations. North is a member of the Rotary Club, Douglas County Chambers Board of Directors, and is a 2018 Leadership Douglas graduate. In addition, he serves on the Live Healthy Douglas, Cobb and Douglas Public Health Boards, Douglas County Community Services Board, Douglas County Kiwanis Club, and the Douglas County Education Collaborative. At the state level, he has served on the Governor's Superintendent's Advisory Task Force and the Georgia School Boards Association Board of Directors. North and his wife Toya are the proud parents of 2 daughters. Kloud-12 and I offer a warm welcome to our guest speaker and presenter for today's roundtable discussion on the topic of building dynamic leadership. Please welcome Mr. Trent North.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
I'm so excited to be with you all today. Any opportunity I have to talk about leadership, that's a joy for me, because I strongly believe that we have to have strong leaders, and there has to be a deliberate effort to build strong leaders. I wrote a book probably about 10 years ago, and my book was on leadership. And it was on leadership solely because I felt like if we didn't figure out how to focus and build stronger leaders, that the country that we love, the quality educational systems that we have, that they were not going to be the same. And so that's a little bit about my passion to leadership. So I'm going to talk a little bit about building dynamic leaders. There's a myth that you can build dynamic leaders within a group. And I don't believe that's the case. I believe that dynamic leaders are built one individual at a time. And when I was an elementary school principal, I created a model to build leaders individually. And I enjoyed doing that. And as a superintendent, I've replicated that with close to 3,400 employees. In order to do that, we have to first believe that everyone is a leader. And sometimes we say it, everybody's a leader. I love all kids. I'm in it for all kids. And we've heard those sayings before, but when we look at actions, we realize that not everybody truly loves all kids. And not everybody truly believes that everyone can be a leader. And so the first step to building dynamic leaders is we've got to individually believe in the myth, or not the myth, in the idea that everyone can lead. Now, I know they can. The question is whether they choose to or not. And sometimes we get it confused because someone chooses not to, or because their behavior doesn't reflect what we think it should, we automatically assume that they can't. And I think a little differently. I don't think they can't. I think they're deliberately choosing not to, because leading isn't something that is easy. It requires work. It requires practice. It requires focus. And so step one is we have to believe that everyone can lead. And then step two is there has to be an individual plan for everyone to become a leader. I remember when I was hired to be the superintendent in Douglas County, and I met with the superintendent's cabinet. And then I remember sharing with them that I didn't want to become the superintendent to do HR. And while I enjoyed HR when I was in Carrollton, I really wanted to serve in the role of the superintendent. And I didn't want to be the CFO. While I enjoyed the finances part of it, I really came to Douglas County to serve as the superintendent. And what I told my team was the only way I can do that and do it effectively is if you allow me to be me. If you expect me to lead and govern the way the prior superintendent did, then we're not going to work. And so I have to be me, and I have to be able to lead within my space. And so that's why I strongly believe that leadership, while there are a lot of commonalities, that's an individual path for individuals. And just like reading, writing, math, we get better at it at different times throughout our lifespan. And some because of our experience, some because of formal training, some because of informal training. And so we reach it at different points. So the first thing I do for all of anyone who holds a leadership position in Douglas County, I did it when I was in Carrollton as well, is I require my leaders to take a Highlands Battery assessment. And the Highland Battery is one of my favorite assessments. The assessment is about 4 hours long, and it isn't a feel-good assessment. So I've taken assessments, red and blue, red, green, blue, and yellow, thinker, feeler, sensor. I've done all of those, what I call feel-good assessments, and they're very accurate. But the one for me that's the most accurate is the Highlands Battery. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about why I favor the Highlands Battery. You all don't know me, but I really love to dance. But rhythm just wasn't given to me in my DNA. While my dad would win dancing contests, my mom couldn't. So I got my mom's DNA. And while my dad's family could sing, I wasn't blessed with vocal cords either. I always tell people I can't find my diaphragm, and which is why I can't sing. I think if I could find it, I don't think I even receive one, and I know I do, but I can't sing. While I can't dance, if I practice at it hard enough, I can learn to dance. And if I take the blue belt and tie it around my stomach, and if I lie on my back and practice with my sounds, I can improve my singing. And so what we talk about with the Highlands Battery is there's a difference between skills and what we do naturally. So I can learn how to play the piano, but my nephew never took any piano lessons, and he can play the piano by ear. So naturally, that's who he is. And so what the Highland Battery does for my staff is it gives them an assessment. And the assessment is timed. And sometimes you become frustrated because you couldn't complete it. But if we allow you too much time to take it, you're going to get better at it. And so it's designed to help you as an individual figure out what you are naturally good at and what you struggle with. And then at the end of it, it gives you great techniques on how to strengthen what you're good at or what you're not good at. And then how sometimes the thing you're good at, you could be inadvertently annoying others because you're good at it. And so that's why I require all of my leaders to take the Highlands Battery assessment. But even within that, I strongly believe that no one should know me better than me. You can't lead, in my opinion, if you do not know yourself. And that is why I say when we're building dynamic leaders, all we're doing is helping individuals better understand him or herself. Because if I know what I'm good at, then I'm going to place myself in situations where I'm going to increase my success. If I know what I'm not good at, I'm going to make sure that I prepare enough time so that I can accomplish the task that's ahead of me. But if I don't know either, it's going to be harder for me to lead or serve in any capacity. And so I want to talk about what that looks like as an individual. And so in Douglas County, the first thing we say is, as an individual, you have to be self-aware. I've just got to know me better than someone else. I've got to know where my red buttons are. Why do I get upset? What makes me happy? Why do I become agitated? And so I've got to do that. So self-awareness means, number one, you've got to have courage. You can't lead weak. Just doesn't happen. So you've got to be courageous. You know, Mr. Reddish talked about one of my passion is focusing on students. And I do not waver with my focus on students. I tell parents all the time, I am not here for you. I am here for your child. And if you're here for your child, then we can partner. But if you're here for anything other than that, then we are not going to be seeing eye to eye. And I'm going to give you a quick example of that. I had a mom, and I was doing town hall meetings. And I remember the mom, she raised her hand, and she was back in the back of the room. And she said, Superintendent North, welcome to Douglas County. She said, I want to ask you a question. And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I know my son. And she said, the school where we were, they want my son to take AP English. He says he can't do it. I know him. If he says he can't do it, then he knows best he can't. And I said, Mom, you got me all wrong. I said, you're wrong. We wouldn't tell you your child could take AP English unless we knew he could. And so I want to strongly encourage you to support your school and place your son in that AP English class. And I know that's not the answer you were looking for. I don't blame your son. Who wants to work late at night? Who wants to be challenged academically if you can say, I can't, and then you can always excuse yourself from doing things? And so I use that as an example. I could have easily been passive and say, yes, Mom, you're right. You know your child. That's the politically correct thing to do. But if you're focused on children, whether it's your teachers, your colleagues, my superintendent colleagues, or my board members, they'll all tell you, I serve to advocate for students. So you've got to be courageous, a part of being self-aware. You've got to be able to instill trust in people. You can't lead unless you have a servant spirit. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And so while we're helping people become leaders, and we need dynamic leaders, they've got to be able to instill trust in people. You've got to have a positive work ethic. That's a struggle. You know, I tell my daughters all the time, if you want to be considered the top 3% of your employees when you go to work, it's real simple. It's not what you know. Just go to work and enjoy what you do. And I tell both of my daughters, you'll be surprised the number of people with poor work ethics, and all they do is complain about something. And so as leaders, we want dynamic leaders to be self-aware, we want them to be courageous, we want them to instill trust, we want them to have positive work ethic, and then we want them to have a commitment to equity. We can't have an organization where some are educated and some are not. We can't have an instructional system where some are promoted and some are not. We can't have a system where some receive resources to provide quality instruction and some are not and some don't. And so we don't like talking about equity because history has given a different definition for equity. But as leaders, we can't succumb to that. We owe it to make sure that every student has a right to experience success, that every teacher that's responsible for providing instruction has a right to be successful. Every building principal has a right to be successful, regardless of his or her zip code. And all that centers around self-awareness. So the first one is self-awareness. The second one, when we talk about building dynamic leaders, is high expectations. And this one is hard for us in the public space. Okay, I take that back. This one is hard for some in the public space. For me, it's the easiest one. And so when we talk about high expectations, we're talking about the quality of our decisions. Do we make quality decisions at a high level? And my daughter's piano teacher taught me this. My youngest daughter, who can play the piano, was taking piano lessons. And I didn't want to invest a lot of money. You know how kids are. 1 minute they want to dance, 1 minute they want to play basketball, 1 minute they want to play the piano. And so I went to Walmart and bought me a nice little, $39 keyboard. And so the piano instructor talked to me after the third lesson, said, your daughter's very good, but she's really not going to be great because of you. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I pay you on time. And she said that she needs to play on the instrument that yields the best sound. So how can you teach someone what quality is if you're not exposing them to the best? Now, I had always wanted a baby grand. This was my good excuse to go out and buy a baby grand in the name of my baby daughter, because I wanted her to learn how to play the instrument on the same tool that she'll be playing on for the rest of her life if she took to music. And just in case she didn't, I bought it with a box on the side so that I can put a tape in so it could play it for me. So high expectation means that when it comes to our students, and I know that we are a public institution, but that doesn't mean that we can't get the right technology for our students. Doesn't mean we can't build them quality buildings. Doesn't mean we can't compensate our staff adequately. Doesn't mean we can't get the technology that we need. So as leaders, we have to have high expectations and make quality decisions, and we can't waver from that, even when it's not popular, even when people talk about us on Facebook because they don't understand why we paid for or why we did it the way we did. We don't waver on high expectation. High expectation means that we are stakeholder focused. We focus on our stakeholders, not sometimes, but all the time. I always tell people when it comes to high expectations, people ask me, so when you won State School Superintendent of the Year, how did you celebrate? And I said, I didn't. I don't celebrate victories. I said, but now when I didn't win the national, I analyzed that. What did I not do right? What could I have not done? What could I have done differently? And it's not that there are winners or losers. Please don't hear me. When it comes to high expectation, we don't spend time. We celebrate just a little as leaders, but we don't spend too much time celebrating. But when we don't get something right, high expectation says we try to figure out what we were missing, not because we want to win, but because we want to improve and always continue getting better. High expectation means knowledge and ensures academic quality. And so leaders, dynamic leaders are self-aware, they have high expectations, and I'm just telling you, we do not waver under any circumstances from our high expectations. We do not. The third one is we're service-minded. You can't lead if you don't have a servant spirit. So I know that while I am the superintendent of the Douglas County School System, I serve my board, I serve my district, I serve my principals, I serve my parents, but my primary group of individuals I serve, those are my students. And I couldn't do what I do if I didn't embrace that I was serving them. So serving, in order to be successful serving, you've got to have interpersonal skills. You've got to be politically savvy. And so politically savvy, you're going to hear me say my students, I'm focus driven. But please know that in order for me to accomplish what I need to for my students, I have to be politically savvy. And people will say, I don't do politics. Yes, you do. Everyone does. Say you don't, then that means you're really doing it. And being passive doesn't excuse you from not being politically savvy. You can't get your budget passed. You can't get community buy-in. You can't partner with new industry coming in. You can't move initiatives without being politically savvy. So service-oriented means being politically savvy. It means you've got to be the master of collaboration. It isn't about me as a superintendent. So when I won, when I was announced as the superintendent of the year for the state of Georgia, the excitement that I did share was because I was excited for my team, because I felt like they were the superintendent of the year. I was excited for my teachers, for my principals, for my students, and for my community. So any accolade I receive, it really isn't a reflection of me. It's a reflection of my leadership and my ability to collaborate with the community so that we can all have a common focus and move in the same direction. Because if my board and I didn't get along, I wouldn't have received the title. If the district office and I didn't get along, I wouldn't have received it. If my principals and I didn't get along, if my community and I, if my students and I through performance. And so while I received the plaque or the trophy, I received it on behalf of all of those that I served. So what I really got an award for is doing a great job of serving all of those within my community. So building dynamic leaders starts with first recognizing that you are a servant leader. I remember there's a young lady, I hope she's not on this call, and she wanted to be a principal and was very, very smart. And I told her, you're not ready because your perception of leadership is wrong. You're looking forward to telling people what to do. You're looking forward to delegating. Your perception of what a leader does isn't an accurate perception. And because of that, even though you're shrewd and incompetent, you can't get a position. And so I had to help her understand that leadership is just the opposite, that you're the first one in and the last one out, that you don't ask anyone to do anything that you have not done or that you're not willing to do. And that is a completely different mindset. You know, sometimes I can be meeting with my team and then we'll be having a conversation about something and then they'll start hemming and hawing about who's going to do it. And I'm quick to say, don't worry about it. I got it. I can do it. Have no problem with doing it. I'm just trying to share. But that servant mindset says that every now and then you have to remind people that not only will you do it, but you're going to do it at the level so you're modeling. But if you don't have a servant mindset, you get mad and then you say, well, since you all can't figure out, then you do it. And then you're making someone do it with the wrong spirit. And that's not what servant leadership is. So my team knows. I want them to grow. I want them to expand. My preference is to allow you to. But at any time you don't want to, I'll be glad to do it. That's servant leadership. And then the fourth and last one. So the first one is self-aware. As an individual, you've got to be aware of yourself. The second one is you've got to have high expectations. The third one is you've got to be service oriented. And then the fourth one is you've got to be results minded. You just have to be. I remember when I was observing a good friend of mine, and she was a fourth grade teacher, and I walked into a classroom, and the kids were all engaged, and they were having fun, and everybody was happy. And I remember when she came to see me, and we had a meeting to talk about her evaluation. I said, I just got to tell you, you have a very positive environment. And now you're going to be disappointed when your scores come return, because there was no learning occurring in your room at all. So results-oriented forces us to do two things. It forces us to be focused on something measurable at the end while engaging in fun and structured activities as well. So results means that we optimize our work process. We don't work just for the sake of work. We don't have meetings just for the sake of meeting. You know, I tell my staff, my superintendent's cabinet, we meet every Tuesday. And there's this myth that there's always something to meet about. No, there isn't. And so when we have things to talk about that are of substance that we can't put in an email, we meet. And we probably meet 3 weeks out of the month, unless there's something crazy going on. And so we optimize our work processes. That helps us become results oriented. Number two, we plan and align. I'm big on processes, protocols, and procedures. In Douglas County, we focus on processes, protocols, and procedures. So what's our process? What are our protocols? What are our procedures? Now that we're done, what didn't go right? So we don't talk about who didn't get it right. We talk about what didn't go right. So was it in our process? Was it in our protocols? Or was it in our procedures? So that we can tweak it, so that when we do it again next year, we will have improved our processes, protocols, and procedures. And then the third thing on the results is we ensure positive climate and culture. I don't want to go into an office where I feel miserable. I don't want to go into a culture where I feel miserable. You know, I remember I had a secretary and she was very nice. And whatever comes up for me, it comes out. I don't sugarcoat. I tell my parents, I tell my community, I'll answer any question you ask of me. You just got to be able to answer. You got to be able to handle my response, because I don't owe it to you to sugarcoat it. And I just feel the best way is transparency. And so I remember talking to my secretary, and I shared with her. I said, "Listen, this isn't going to work. I can't feel like I'm an outsider coming into my office, and you are my assistant. And so let me share with you what you've been doing and what you've been saying. And it's created, you know, you've been talking to the basketball coach about things, but you wouldn't share it with me. And so I'm having to get it third hand. And it's my office. And it's your job to share it with me." And so none of us want to go into a classroom or to a building where the glass has always seen as half empty in lieu of half full. So I'm a half full type of guy. I hire half full type of people. I promote half full type of people. I work with half empty type of people, trying to help them strengthen their metacognitive level, their whatever it is, so they can see the glass as half full and not half empty. Now, and I don't need you thinking that I'm watering down something, I'm lowering expectation. I just shared with you that I have high expectation. And those who work with me know that I have very little tolerance for those in our organization that they don't share those high expectations. So while I have high expectations, and I don't waver from that, and I expect my staff to be the exact same way, the culture has to be welcoming, and the glass has to be received or viewed as being half full. And so when we're building dynamic leaders, it's individual by individual. And then for me, it focuses on self-awareness, high expectation, service, and results. And so when we hire in Douglas County, that's what we look for. And if you go to our website, we have an 8-page document that conveys with more detail than I'm sharing. And just real quick, the reason we created the document was because my principals thought that I had favorites. And if you heard me talk about equity, you can't have favorites with equity. I told my principals and my leaders that I do have favorites. And what I said was, and when you realize who they are, what I want you to do is to try to figure out what they're doing and replicate it. So they're not favorite because they gave me something for Christmas. They're not favorite because they baked me pies. They're not favorite because they're bobbleheads, because I don't do bobbleheads. They're favorites because I said, here's how I want you to interact with my students. And they're doing that. They're favorites because I said, here's how I want your PLCs to operate, and they're doing that. And so just like you, the students who get it right, they become your model. We call them student work samples. So what if we have adult work samples? So as a superintendent, I have adult work samples. And so I strongly encourage my staff to figure out what they're doing. But when I realized some didn't want to do that, I created the document. And so the document is so that there won't be any guessing, so that you know, for the Douglas County school system, we have a common definition, we have a common vocabulary for what we see and values as leaders. And what I'm sharing with you is a model. It may not be the model for Fulton County, or it may not be the model for the individual on the board from Denver, from Colorado. The important thing is that the organization that you're working for, that there's a common expectation for leaders, in addition to the evaluation, that's been agreed upon, and everyone is striving towards that individually. And if we do it individually, then collectively, the organization moves in the same direction. So that's my core belief on leadership and how you build dynamic leadership.
Thank you so much, Mr. North. And we're just going to ask a couple of questions in our remaining time here. The first question we have is, I have a question from Miss Mia. How would you coach your building principals or even teachers to help transform the mindset of a parent or group of parents like the one you mentioned who accepted defeat for their child?
So that's the fun part for me. So here's what happens, okay? Because all of our customers, meaning our students, their parents were customers at one time. And if they didn't have a good experience, they're not trusting us at the level they used to. So step one is you've got to convey to them that you're the professional in the building. You can't do that with blue jeans on. You can't do that with flip-flops on. If you're looking like them, then they're not going to respect what you have to say. You know, I have kidney stones. And while as a spiritual person, I look to God for my healing, I recognize that he uses fleshly people as his support to provide care. And so just think about this for a minute. Who do you want taking care of you if you're in the hospital? Someone coming in with a blue jeans, flip-flops, and a UGA shirt, or someone coming in with a white jacket on. And so we've been taught to recognize the white jacket as a doctor or someone in the medical field, and that gives them credibility. Well, we're professionals as well. And so from day one, we have to convey to them that we are professionals. So we do it first in our appearance. And then the second thing we do is we help them understand via data why we think what we do about their child. We don't talk down to them. We don't belittle them. It becomes a dialogue and not a monologue. And so the more we do it, the better we become at it, the more they're going to listen to us. And when they are defensive, we can't react defensively, because if they're defensive, it's not because of us. You just had that child for the first time. Sometimes the parent is upset about the teacher they had last year or the year before that. And so we have to give space, give grace, and gradually continuing to eat away at that mom, to eat away at the community. It is hard work. I'm not sure which one is more difficult, especially in the K-12 space today for us. We used to just focus on educating the child, and now we can't. We've got to educate child. We've got to get mom to buy in. We've got to get community to buy in. So in our profession, guys, you're working harder than any educators prior to you just because of Facebook, Twitter, and they don't show all the great work that we do. They just show the bad. And what they're showing isn't even always accurate. But the parents bring that into our one-on-one meetings. And so we've just got to be patient and stick to the facts, remain focused, unyielding, and to continue to gradually eat away at it. One meeting at a time, one conversation at a time. And that's how we do it. Stephen Covey calls it the emotional bank account. So we're making deposits before we make a withdrawal. Mom, I'm enjoying your child. Today we had a great day. Even though he didn't get the academics right, day 2, he completed his assignment. And so we don't get into the accuracy of it. And so we are letting her know, him or her know, that we're partnering with him before we make the withdrawal. That's how we do it.
Awesome answer. Thank you, Mr. North. I have a principal that's asking, how do you build school culture if you have a high staff turnover?
That's a tough one. So I wish I knew more about the school, but always remember, this is my hypothesis. I was meeting with my high school principals, and it was probably all my high school principals and about 4 middle school principals, and they were experiencing high turnover. They were new principals. Typically, when new principals come, you have high turnover. And that's for a number of reasons. Mr. Reddish, if you remind me, I can explain a little bit why we have high turnover when new principals come. But I want to answer this question first. So teachers don't go to work at a school because of the superintendent. They don't go to work at a school because of the district office. They go to work at a school statistically because of 1 or 2 reasons. Number 1, they have friends there who have said that this is a place you want to work. Or number 2, because in the interview, the principal said something that they liked and they were impressed. And then number 3, they can't find a job anywhere else, and the principal chose to take a chance on them not realizing that. So I'm going to not talk about the third one. I'm going to talk about 1 or 2. So if a principal is having high turnover, you either have a bad culture with your staff, which is the principal's fault, or it is you. At the end of the day, the principal controls about 25% of the culture of his or her building. Now, I want to emphasize the 25% because it's important for principals to know they do not run the building. The teachers run the building. And if you think I'm wrong, try to implement a new strategy. And the teachers are not in favor of it. Try to bring on a new principal and the teachers are not supportive of it. So we're not saying that we concede that the teachers run it, but we recognize that they are a key component of the principal's success. So the principal has to figure out, how do I partner with my teachers and remain in the authority role as the principal? Because if I partner too much, then when they do something wrong, I can't be the authoritarian and deal with it from an administrative perspective. And so it goes back to being politically savvy. And so the principal sets the tone for the building. So what the principal has to do is try to figure out, what am I not doing right? We use an instrument called Pulse. And so every 3 weeks, the students, teachers, and parents are able to give me a pulse of their school. And I had one of my principals to present at our principal retreat because she didn't want to do it. And she thought her scores were bad. And what she learned was, you can feed them all you want, and that feeding is going to only give you 1 day. You can be nice to them, it's only going to give you 1 day. You've got to figure out what it is you're not doing that's creating dissension within your building. And if you can figure that out and figure out how to partner with your staff, the turnover is going to cease. And you can do it without wavering on your high expectations. So I had high expectations, but I also realized that I wasn't the only smart person in the building. But I had some smart teachers, I had some smart parapros, some smart custodians, and I had to respect that. And so I would have this saying, I would be all excited, my leadership team and we would work on something new, and I would go into a faculty meeting, and I would be standing up, and I'm gonna roll it out. And then the hemming and hawing started. I was like, wait a minute now, this is good. And let me hear what you're saying. And when I heard from them, it wasn't that they were saying no just for the sake of knowing. They had some substantive things to contribute. And so my leadership team would get mad at me because I wouldn't do it. And I'll say, I hear you. So let me back up and punt. Please understand, the goal is still here. So I'm not lowering the expectation. I'm not changing the goal. This just isn't the right plan. And so I hear you. And so we go back. And then we start it all over again until we get it right. And then once we get it right, then we can hold everyone accountable. But at my core, I believe that teachers change schools because of the teachers in the building, and they leave because of the teachers in the building. And the principal sets the tone for what will and will not occur in the building.
Thank
I
you.
have one more question. Yes, sir.
Yes. And our final question is, you are a Kloud-12 customer. Why did you purchase Kloud-12, and how has that been working for your district?
I got to tell you, when I was first introduced to Kloud-12, I was very skeptical. As a matter of fact, the guy who introduced it to me, he was agitated. He sent me in because the prior superintendent had committed to implementing it. And I was like, so what? I'm not him. And so I remember them sending me emails. And so finally, I was in Savannah at a conference, and they said, can we sit and let me just share with you the product. And when they did, I saw uses for it within my system a little bit different. They were, at that point, it was mostly about safety. And so while I love the safety piece, the instructional piece was my favorite. And so what we're trying to do in Douglas County is I want to create a repository of 5-star teaching that matches every part of our unit. So let's say you're a mom and your daughter is at home and you're learning fractions. And you know how to do fraction the way you used to, but the way it's coming home with this new math, you can't do it. And so mom is struggling. So imagine if mom could pull up the recording that we're recording from Cloud K-12 and then go to the lesson and pull up, and mom could see the exact same lesson, might not be by the teacher, but the exact same lesson that was taught by the teacher that's going to assist him and her assist their child with the lesson. So that's one reason why I love it, okay? Because we have that capacity and we're starting to do so. Number two, remember what I said about self-awareness. Leaders aren't just those that are out of the classroom. Teachers are leaders as well. And so we're trying to instill in our teachers, there are 2 ways to strengthen what you do as an individual. Or you can do it intrinsically. So they have the capability of recording themselves, analyzing themselves, and making adjustments as well. And that is important to me, modeling what I expect, self-awareness, because my principles, it's important to me that this tool is used as an instructional tool. So in different school systems and so forth, Douglas County, my principals can't just go onto the camera and look at it. That's going to create credibility issues with my teachers. And because of that, I had a principal, call my teaching and learning assistant superintendent. He was all upset, like, hey, I just think as a principal, I should be able to go and observe my teacher. Why can't I have access to it? So my assistant superintendent comes to me like, hey, this principal shared that. And I said, he can. Tell him to leave his office, walk down to her room, and he can observe her. It's an instructional tool to support teachers, students, and parents. And that's what I like about it. And I can't wait to have my complete repository so that parents can go on and see the code that matches the lesson, and then they can see the homework assignment. And so we tell ourselves we don't send kids home unless we know that they can complete the homework assignment. And while that's our goal, in our profession, we know that that doesn't always happen. So for me, there's always a plan A, we don't do it. For plan B, in the event that it does happen, or in the event that mom wants to do some additional, here it is online. That's why I love Cloud K-12.
Thank you so much, Mr. North, and thank you so much for this opportunity and sharing. So we just thank you so much from Kloud-12. Thank you so much.
I got to run, but I got to go to a student funeral. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. All right. And in our closing, thank you all for attending. For any follow-up questions that you may have, or to set up a meeting for your district or school leadership team. We also provide on-site virtual professional development workshops, and or to learn more about Kloud-12, you can contact me via email at Emmanuel@kloud-12.com. You can also set up a meeting directly on my calendar at calendly.com/Emmanuel Reddish. Our next event is this Thursday for our coffee chat, and we will be talking about building a positive and collaborative culture. Our next roundtable is with Kim Harris on Tuesday, March the 28th. Thank you all so much for attending, and we hope you have a wonderful day. And on behalf of Jason Ulmer, Kloud-12 President, Kelly Martinez, Director of Customer Success, myself, and all of Kloud-12, we thank you, Mr. North, and we thank you all for attending. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.